Hello, Bonsai friends. This is Evan Pardue of Underhill Bonsai, and welcome to episode 51 of Little Things for Bonsai People. And this time I'm joined by my co-hosts. My first co-host is Mike Lane of Kitsune Bonsai. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, Evan. What's up, man?
Oh, nothing much, dude. And our second co-host is Carmen Lescovianski. How you doing today?
What's up, Carmen?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
And, there's no order. There's not like a ranking system going on there, by the way. They're both equally awesome.
Wait, yeah, wow, yeah. Actually, I was already like, man.
Number one.
You were just going alphabetically by last name.
That's true.
Number one out of 50. There's a 50% chance you're going to get that title. But anyway, so today's topic is we're going to do a little bit of spooky stuff. It's a little bit of just a little bit of a laid back episode today. We're just going to talk about some Halloween,
Because
some
all of our
spooky
other
stories.
ones are so serious.
Yeah, we're always so serious. But we're going to talk about, some fun stories, maybe some things that are related to bonsai that we know, or maybe some personal accounts. I've seen, maybe ghosts and Bigfoots before, but maybe we'll talk about that in a little while. And if Mike's all right with it, we can talk about his experience with Laurent. Eh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And then we have one tree critique that was submitted as tribute for us to just completely shred. They said be harsh, so we're going to do our best. But
awesome.
Before we get into that, we do need to mention that our podcast is sponsored by our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/little things for bonsai people. Head on over there and become a bonsai best bud and hang out on the Discord with these amazing people, starting off our list with Taurus Elise, Vicky Auth, Boyd Snellgrove, Ricky Ruins, Joshua Bittler, Snappy Chappers, Joel Jenkins, Justin Knight, Backyard Bonsai Australia, Greenwich Gardens, Taylor Peacock, Chase Retweet, Chase, I swear, Austin Adkins, Karen Codswell, Urin in Bonsai Garden, Luis Torres, AC Castle, Bonsai Marine, Jas Potts, JAS Potts, I don't know which one to say, Chris Fassoon, and Timothy Arsenault. I've been calling him Tiffany recently for no reason.
Nice.
If it wasn't for our patrons, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you guys so much. And I get a shout out at the beginning of every episode if you are a Bonsai Best Bud $5 tier patron. And Carmen, you have a ad read to do.
I sure do. Let me find it.
Who else is this podcast sponsored by?
This podcast is sponsored by Bonsai Bar, the beginner bonsai workshop popping up in breweries all across the Northeast. Bonsai Bar is 2 hours of tiny tree goodness disguised as a night out with friends. Come grab drinks, create a new tree, and watch as your friends and family get the bug for bonsai. Bonsai Bar is always looking for teachers and assistants, and you listen to this podcast, so you're probably already qualified. Bring your knowledge out to the bar. Apply today. Find event tickets, contact info, and more at bonsaibar.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bonsai Bar, for sponsoring our show. And then I can't go without mentioning Matt O'Donnell. He makes us sound smart, cleans up the audio, makes us enjoyable to listen to. Go over to mattodonnell.com to fill out a contact form to start your own podcast show or audio engineering project with him. He's a set bassist living in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's an all-around awesome guy. It's in the script. I say it every time. So how is it going, crew? It's the first time in a while that we've had the three of us sitting down and look at each other on a Zoom call. How's it going?
Yeah. How's it going with you guys?
Let's see. What have we been doing? I don't even remember. What day is it? Last week was super busy. We had a bunch of folks come visit the garden, including Laurent Dureau and Dave DeGroat, and who else was with him? And let's see, we had a fall seasonal. We've got another fall seasonal happening next week. So that's a 3-day intensive course run by Michael Hagedorn of Crataegus Bonsai. And then this week is kind of a down-ish week between classes. So I'm just styling up some raw stock this week.
Ooh,
that's fun.
I love raw stock.
Super fun.
On my end, I've got a lot going on too. I mean, I will be standing in 2 weddings and attending 3, out of the, so it's 3 and standing out at two of the 3. And that's going to be back to back for the next 4 weeks. So I've got a really exciting personal time thing going on there. But also, after having Laurent, this is right before, we talked about this in a couple episodes already. But I've gotten a lot of, I guess, a lot of things to do with the nursery now. Speaking of raw stock, I've been trying to cull my way through all the raw stock coming into the fall season. Everything's starting to pick up a little bit, especially after our 100-degree dry summer. We finally got a little bit of rain. It cooled off, and everything's growing now. So it's kind of like a second spring in a weird way, but I know it's like kind of already doomed from the get because everything's like a little weaker than it should be because of just how intense it was. Mike, did you experience like an overly just like brutal like summer?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, all sorts of stuff is just acting weird. And, this time of year for us is an odd time because even though it's still warm, everything is slowing down. So like buttonwoods aren't really growing, they'll grow at a fraction of the rate that they were growing. And so a lot of people think like, in Florida, we have an endless growing season. And in a lot of ways we do, but the growth like slows to a crawl this time of year. So it's just trying to, find things to do around the garden, catch up on things, and finally get around to weeding things. And it's this is my favorite time of year, honestly, because things do slow down in the garden. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, things are a little slower. I feel like you can gauge things as far as, treatment of growing things out, like blowing things out for certain development processes, or, can you still repot a few things in Florida?
I still do that. I still do it. It's risky. I don't recommend anybody do it. But I still do it. And my theory is I can bring it in and keep the tree warm. It has bit me in the ass in years past though. So, I always tell students, if you decide to do that and work out a season, you do that at your own risk. You can lose branches, you can weaken the tree, just have a terrible winter. But there are times like sea hibiscus and whatnot. I know, and from years past, we've been warm up through December, and I don't really see that they stop growing. And I only need like 2 weeks for them to root into a pot. So if I have 2 weeks of warm weather, I can repot them.
And I know there was a question in the Discord. I don't know if you saw it, about taking buttonwood cuttings.
Oh yeah.
And I think the question was, let me go back and look at it real quick. Unless Carmen, can you go to the Discord probably faster than I can if you had it pulled up?
Oh, okay. Trying to root a couple of green and silver buttonwoods in water. So far, the green one has roots around 1 inch. What could be a good indicator that it's safe to take out a cutting from water and move it to soil?
I've always had a hard time with that. I've always had a hard time. I don't root them in water. I just root them in soil.
Good.
And I've always had a hard time transferring them over from water to soil. The roots always seem like super tender when they're grown in water and super kind of weak.
Good.
And so I tend to have bad luck with that. So I would say wait until they harden off best to your ability, and then try and transfer it over to some soil. But I would try to root them in soil going forward, and try not to just root like 1 or 2 at a time. Try to root as many as you can. I know it's easier said than done, but it is actually easier to do that. So if you have multiple cuttings drawing from the moisture of one pot, then you have much more likelihood that they'll all make it.
They'll even out the amount of moisture, and then it might not rot the cutting necessarily.
Correct.
Yeah. The thing with the water roots versus the like straight to the soil roots, I've always kind of been under the impression too that some plants make different types of roots depending on the situation, like a water root. And Carmen, you have a little bit more of the background with that. Can there be a different water root to a struck ground cutting?
Well, the roots that are in water generally aren't, in my experience, and I haven't done this with hardwood cuttings, but with houseplants, a lot of times they're a little bit weaker, it seems, but like a lot of times even the growth when you're growing something in water can be a little bit weaker. So my experience with houseplants, so again, this might be different with buttonwood, but I usually wait until there's a lot of roots so that if any of them get damaged, there's still something there. If you have like a significant amount of root, you're way more likely to be successful. I would not remove it from the water if it has one root that's like an inch long. That's probably not going to be enough. And I was seeing that, who was it? Somebody on Instagram who does a lot of houseplant propagation was using those like clay balls that they use in hydroponics a lot as kind of an in-between for moving from straight water to soil. So, I mean, that's something they could try. Or just waiting until there's a lot of root and then transferring it over. So I would wait until it's, till there's, more roots than you think you need, probably.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of work just to stick it in soil with strong roots. But I don't know. I was just trying to get a reference point there because, I mean, I don't
know how different they are, but I imagine they're a little bit weaker because they're not, they're in water, which is different than.
I've gotten very few plants to take root in water like that and then just transfer it over just for the roots to either break off or just get replaced with a fine.
Well, the science behind that is that roots, if you're giving the plant everything it needs, it doesn't need to push a lot of roots. So if it has access to tons of water, then it doesn't need to search for it. And so think like hardy, woody roots come from searching behavior. So if they have to dry down a little bit to seek and to start hardening off. So it's usually you'll get very, very tender, thin roots. That's always been my experience. But Carmen's right. As long as you like build up that water bottle or whatever filled with roots, then your odds are good that some of those will make it through to the potting. But I tend to agree with Evan that I tend to just use soil more often.
Yeah. So yeah, pick your battles pretty much is what we're all collectively saying here, I guess. But yeah, so tell us, Mike, since you had a lot more travel time with Laurent, or Lo is what he preferred for his friends to call him, is what he told me.
What was it?
Lo, which is because how you actually say his name, it's not Laurent, it's actually Lone, I think, or something.
That's Laurent.
Laurent. Yeah, because I got a really
the
bad
French way.
He says I don't say it right, but yeah, I still try. I just he says call me Lo, and I'm like, wow.
But yeah, I had my take on him because I spent about 10 days with him, and you spent a significant amount of time. So
I did.
Yeah. So let's hear what you have to say.
Well, there's just a lot, there really is a lot of unpacking to do. In all honesty, I mean, I've been kind of laying low and just keeping to myself mostly because artistically, I'm in kind of a state of flux. I don't really know where I'm at, where my bonsai's at. I think in a lot of ways he has some philosophies that through like long conversations I realize are important and are things that I need to consider in my bonsai, which I'll talk about in a second. And some others are like make me question like what I want out of the art, So some of those themes are kind of like the sense of self in art versus like the sense of almost like eliminating self. And so if you look at bonsai as a Zen art and you look at it from the Japanese Japanese eyes of Zen, then you are supposed to take yourself out of the equation. You're supposed to almost like kill your ego, And so when you make art, it's not supposed to come from yourself. It's not supposed to be my identity is in this artwork. It's not supposed to be my, that's less important. You're a hive mind. It's a whole. And so Western art, and I think Laurent really embraces ego and embraces that sense of self. And, it's more kind of looking to put his identity on the craft and looking to leave a legacy that is above just being a part of a whole. He's special. And so that's the idea behind like art through self, I guess. Mm-hmm. So that's something I've been thinking a lot about is, do I even want to make art for myself? Is that something that appeals to me? I don't know. And then some of the other things are dealing with some things. He will say things that aren't necessarily what you want to hear. And what I've said in the past is like, I've had very pivotal moments in my bonsai where I had a really, really harsh critique from Mark Nolander about 8 years ago that destroyed me. And it ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to my bonsai, because I ended up coming back reinvigorated. And this is something similar in that a lot of things that you think, you think you're going down the right path, and you realize like, yeah, you are, but there are other paths still to kind of unfold. And it just, like to kind of illustrate that point is, his way of doing bonsai in a lot of ways is more wabi-sabi than like the Japanese way of doing it. And the reason I say that is he's only ever keeping the tree in refinement for 2 years at a time. And then the tree goes back into development, and it's perpetually in development. So it's forever being developed into something new. And so for an art that claims to be something that embraces impermanence and teaches you about impermanence, it seems to kind of embrace that philosophy more, Yeah. And it also makes me think about like, how many issues do you avoid by keeping a tree refined all the time? Like the reality is that refining a tree for 40 years is slowly weakening the tree to death. Like, it's not going to die because you'll do something about it before that happens. But the reality is like, you're getting small leaves for a reason. You're getting like all of these diminutive traits for a reason. And it's not because the tree is growing vigorously and happy and healthy. It's growing slow. It's growing slow, and it's growing, in an environment usually that it doesn't want to be in. We're keeping it wetter than we need to keep it. We're not fertilizing it as aggressively as we could fertilize it. And so when you think about it through the lens of like doing everything for the tree, is keeping a tree in refinement forever really best for the tree? I don't know. And so I guess what I've been doing in the last few weeks is just licking my wounds, just really letting letting everything settle out, kind of seeing where my heart still is, kind of where I kind of am going to go with this, what direction I want to go. It was exactly what I needed, but it wasn't what I wanted necessarily.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you being so like vulnerable with your feelings about this experience for you, because I had the opportunity to talk to him for, I don't know, only like an hour and a half or so. And even within that time, I was only actually talking with him for maybe 30 minutes. So I'm jealous in the sense that you and Evan got a chance to have some of these really deep conversations with him. It's something that I'd like to do in the future. But back to one of the first things you said about how he's actually like actively putting himself into this as art. I think this is one of those places where the art versus craft debate comes into play, right? Where how the Japanese do it of removing the ego or doing it, just to create bonsai is more of the craft of bonsai. Whereas what he has done, and I said this to Michael as well, that, he's come up with a way of doing bonsai that breaks the rules, but in kind of an appropriate way. So it's creating this new thing. Like, we went from, if you're considering painting, from realism to surrealism to cubism to all these different styles. So once you have the technique, once you have the craft, you can create something new and different. And that's what impresses me so much about what he's doing, is that it is totally, he's drawn from a lot of, I think, the Indonesian styles, but what he's doing and how he's presenting it and teaching it is very different and unique. And I think that that's really cool. He's really somebody I would like to talk to more about this, because I think that's where a lot of people maybe in the US kind of want to go with, trying to put them, a lot of us want to create art, we don't want to just make bonsai. We want to express ourselves or show something that's a little bit different and be very, and we try to do that maybe without having all of the skills of how to do it,
Right.
in a really successful way. So I think that's part
100%. You just nailed it.
Thank you. Woo!
100%.
Okay,
No, I really.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out. No,
I think like we do try to do it before we have the skills to do it, and I think that's kind of the major rub. That's the major rub. Is one thing that dealing with Laurent that I realized was like it's high art. It's very, very high art for him. And one of the things he said that was so appealing was that if you are going to step outside of the box, especially in bonsai, like every part of your composition has to be perfect. There can't be a flaw, can't be any flaw in your theory, can't be any flaw in anything. Your horticulture has to be perfect because people are going to come for it and they're going to look for it. If they don't like your style, they're going to look for ways to pick it apart.
Yep.
And so
100%.
I felt his approach to each project is like a true artist. Like there was no hint. I was telling my fiance there's no hint that Cosmic Bonsai was coming. It wasn't like before he first showed the tree that there were Facebook updates like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what's happening. No, he was quietly for 5 or 6 years putting together this composition, having a guy paint a fresco on concrete, having these kakemono put together, and then he released it boom, as a composition and then sold it off. And that's done. That part of his life is done. That composition, that project is over. And I think when you look at it like that, it is art. I mean, it's more art than I'd say bonsai. And that's the struggle I'm having. It's like I love bonsai. I love bonsai. And the art appeals to me. It does. I don't know. There's just a lot bouncing around.
Yeah. So. Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a lot to process. And I think that there's also space to do both, or find some other in between. So I think you're doing the right thing, taking time to just let it settle and think about it.
Well, one argument is this too, is like with Laurent, what people don't realize is what makes him unique is he's worked in China. Like he worked for 7 years in China and Taiwan. He's worked in collections in Japan. He's worked in high-level collections in Europe. And so he's seen bonsai on a world level that not a lot of people get to see and experience. And what he's seen is ass loads of perfect trees.
Yeah.
So many perfect trees. And what happens when for 35 years you see the same triangle over and over and over and over and over, and every tree's done to a high level and every tree's perfect. Well, then you start looking for something different. And what we talked about is you could go to a Japanese nursery and find 200 gardenias that are ready for Gafuten, 200 perfect gardenias. And the one they'll pick to go to Gafuten will be the one that has a weird branch.
Yep.
And so the whole point is I guess where I'm stuck is why even bother making a perfect tree when at the end of the day, I'm never going to want it. And, I'm not going to want this cookie cutter, same mass production thing. Even if it's done to a high level, I would get bored of it. And so I don't know. I just, like you said, got a lot to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point. I think I'm, here at Michael's, my words are hard today. Michael's Garden, we have so few of each species, and each piece is almost a piece of art in itself. So it's not that cookie cutter Japanese style of like you said, there's 100 perfect junipers all lined up in a row, which I've seen there, and it's astounding. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But I don't have that experience because here everything is so unique. And I think that's something that probably helped him, in the long run, and will help all of us in the long run to start to be more creative and break out of that cycle. But what's the point if there's 500 perfect ones? and you're going to pick
Right.
the one with the weird branch.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
that's
just for fun to find
just for fun.
find the one with the weird branch.
Well, I guess like my whole pursuit up until this point has been to develop the technical skills to. I wanted to be able to build a perfect tree, know how to do that. And now that's already. I'm not going to say I'm bored with it, but it's already starting. I can feel it starting to like come to the point where I'm like, okay, all my trees are very much the same. My trees are built by the same formula. And, this is going to be harsh to say, but a lot of the ones that are made by that algorithm, they just lack soul. They lack soul. And I think, I don't know, the more I look at trees, especially going to the redwoods this year, seeing the redwoods, seeing that not everything has to have a big giant first branch, and seeing that things have scars, and seeing, I don't know, just got a lot of reevaluating to do.
You got to come out here, come out to Portland and hang out with us and see some of our weird stuff.
Well, I know Michael's really into that. I knew Laurent would really enjoy his garden, and I really would like to be more like that. The issue, I guess I'm not artistic, is the real issue. It's like I'd love to be artistic, and hear me out.
Okay.
It's like,
okay.
I've always wanted to be an artist, always. And I used to want to draw. So I used to love drawing, but I never could come up with anything from like my brain, nothing from the ether. I'd always see something drawn and I'd sit and I'd recreate that drawing, and I'd memorize how to do that. And so I'd always be able to redraw that wherever. And I've done that with everything. And so I went through a lot of my life thinking I was very artistic. I do that with music. I do that with bonsai as well. And what I learned is like, I'm not artistic. What I am is very analytical. And so for me, the rules are like a life jacket. The rules and the algorithm and all that are like a way to still make art when I'm not necessarily able to pull that from the ether.
I've always struggled with that concept too, of just pulling something out of thin air and creating it. I mean, I think there is some misunderstanding with drawing and painting in that a lot of it is done from photos. My brother is he's got a degree in fine arts, and he works in tech, but he still does painting. And a lot of his work is done based off of photos. And a lot of my drawing in the past has been done off of photos. And I think that there's, I think in that respect, it's a lot like bonsai, where you have to copy it a certain amount until you can move past it. And I've never gotten to that point with art, and I'm starting to get to that point with bonsai. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was working on this tree last week, and I might have cried a little bit because I was so frustrated with like how the heck do I make the top of this tree not have a bald spot? And like, it's like, I know what it's supposed to look like. I know, what bonsai is supposed to be. And I can maintain trees forever. Easy. Right. Like, I've got that check. Cool. We're good. But when it comes to the actual creation process, it's so hard. And it's like, it's a totally different animal. And I think, I don't know where I was going with this, but
no, I think you're right though. I mean, it is hard. And so it's good to have, like, the rules are a great way to navigate the expanse.
Right.
And, but I do think that it's got to be so cool to just like really deftly just see it and just have your fingers just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
maybe we're just not there yet.
Yeah, that's what I think too. And maybe
he spent 35 years in Japan and China and Indonesia. Like,
yeah. And that's what I'm saying is the guy, when I try to explain like why he's into cosmic style and stuff like that, is I'm like, boredom, like literally boredom. Like you've seen a gajillion Kokufutan worthy trees. And at a certain point, you're just like, all right, let's do something else.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I do have one thing to say about the whole perspective on like being analytical versus being artistic that you kind of brought up before we move on from this topic.
Never. I could talk about this forever.
I know we could talk about this forever. Yeah. But I mean, there hasn't been any complaints from our listeners. So, but yeah, for art though, it's like I get that coming up with something from your mind is close to impossible for some people. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the best pieces in art had reference. So you talked about taking a picture and drawing what you saw in the picture. A lot of classical pieces were either they had the model stand there to a quick sketch, and then the artist had to go back later on because the person could stand there for months on end for them to paint the image. So a lot of that was just from it's a mixture of reference points and then going off what you know at kind of just like cross-reference here to the rules of bonsai, the common practice of bonsai. Start with your nabari, go to your first branch, go to your second branch. So it kind of gives you an outline just like that from the drawing to the painting. So there's always been reference points. And even in like more abstraction stuff, like there's a little bit more of a different approach to that as well. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, Carmen, with the transition from, I can't remember if it was you or Mike, I'm going to be honest, but I heard Cubanism dropped in there for a second.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was you. Okay. But yeah, the conversation got really, really deep. I was in another place. No, but Cubanism has a reference point as well. But like you said, whenever Picasso got bored with it, he created those pieces for himself, and he kept them for a long time. I don't know if you guys have gone into art history.
I've seen like his progression of, it was actually a meme. It was like his first self-portrait, the middle of his career self-portrait, and then a self-portrait of him in Cubism. And it was like, wow, he's aged terribly. Like,
but yeah, the Cubanism thing was him being literally just bored with it because he felt like he had gotten to a point where he's like, all right, well, I can do this portrait again, or I can just do this in my studio and keep it to myself. So when he finally unearthed, I think it was the painting of the three women that he did was like the first one that they put out. It like broke the art scene. Yeah. So, I mean, that there is a way to be creative, and that's one thing that I remember Laurent saying a lot was like, be creative. That was like kind of his one of his springboard things. He would just say, and most of the conversations, whatever, it's like, oh, if you're struggling, you need space to be creative. That's why he said you can't confine yourself to a certain size because you don't know what the size is ever going to be of your tree. Right. So you need space to be creative to add on. And one of the things that it reminds me of is another art form called automatic drawing. And that's kind of what it reminds me of with Cosmic. It's kind of an automatic drawing concept where it's like, I don't know where this is going, but I'm just going to shut my brain off and I'm just going to wire the tree, or vice versa, hold the pencil and just let it just guide me through the paper until something happens. And then I step back and I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is just a concept, or maybe this is the piece.
100%.
Yeah.
I've seen art done like that before, and it's really bizarre to me because I've always gone into painting or drawing or whatever with this idea of what I'm going to create. And I've seen, particularly, I'm thinking of one of Michael's friends who does ceramics, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He just starts doing it and then lets the thing create itself. And I don't, that's like not how I function. So it's really bizarre to me how that form of creation happens. But I also always want to challenge people when they're like, I'm not an artist, because I think people inherently are artists. It's just how we go about art is very different based on just technical skills or our medium. Because I have a friend who before has told me, like, when I think I had started drawing again or something, and I was like, look at this drawing I did. He was like, wow, really nice. Like, I wish I could draw, or wish I could do art in some way. And I was like, okay, but you do.
The answer is you can.
Different.
Right.
His medium is people. He's very good with people, and it's almost an art with how he handles conversations and managing people and all of that. But like, you have to really flip your brain and think, okay, what is art? What is creation? And then you just get into this whole other crazy deep conversation.
You get into a infinitely like deep hole of what it can be and what it is.
Yeah, exactly. What what is art and what is high art? You know, what is high art? I mean, my favorite art is the art that like continually nags at you, like long after you've seen it, like something that, you know, that's why honestly why I've been attracted to Japanese arts for so long is there's a term called shibui, and that's an aesthetic term where something like at first might look subtle and you might like not be drawn to it, but then over time the interest builds and you start to like pick up on nuances and like new parts to it. And there's something really cool about that, about like not seeing it all in one time. And
that's very bonsai and bonsai display. It's so subtle that you often overlook it until you really spend a lot of time with it.
Right. Yeah, I saw one of my favorite displays ever was a pool stone. Right, it was a with a little dimple in it, and right next to it was a tall cascade stand with a suiseki, like a mountain stone. And I looked at that for years, and all I thought was, wow, what a cool like monkey pole that's sitting up on. I never like drew the correlation that they're showing a waterfall. So the mountain is the suiseki high up, and then the pool stone is like the endless stream of water just hitting the stone. And I just thought, man, that's deep. That's so that's the kind of art I like, that stuff that's layered, that takes a while to kind of get. And
then they set it up so nonchalantly, you know,
right.
Like if you ever see anybody setting up a bonsai display, it's just like, or watch the Japanese masters like doing their work. It's so just like straightforward, nonchalant. Like you don't get the deep feeling that you imagine that they would have doing it. And it's like, you just made a waterfall out of two things that are not a waterfall.
I mean,
like
it did take them years to get the concept together, and only seconds to set it up too.
But there's also there's this old saying from the Mustard Seed Garden Manual for Painting, which is an old Chinese book that like all Japanese art references, and it basically said to the effect of something that a master should aim to be deft without being deft, and should aim to be with form, but also without form. And like, it was one of those like really weird yin and yang Eastern philosophy kind of things. But the more I do art and the more I do bonsai, the more I start to see that as it's hard for me sometimes to explain how I get to the results I get to at this point. You know, it's and sometimes it just happens, and that's that I think is my favorite part of any art, is when you're in that flow state and you're just deftly doing it. And so I think that's what happens, is these masters are setting up their display, and it's deftly happening. You know, it's like falling out of their hand that way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What was that book? Sorry, Evan. What was that book called? The Mustard Seed Manual for Painting?
Mustard Seed Garden Manual for Painting.
Okay, I gotta look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna let my cat out of the room. Please hold.
All right.
Okay.
Keep talking.
No, it'll be a good pause for a second so our brains can all seep back down into the containers that they were in originally.
Yeah, my vessel. I was telling Lisa I'm ready to abandon my vessel.
Don't say that. That's absolutely terrifying. Like,
no, we were talking about AI, and I was like,
Speaking of AI, well, AI is actually kind of spooky to me. I'll be honest. I don't know about you guys.
I talked to a programmer who made me not worry about it.
Yeah, and I'm also
it wasn't my husband though. He made me worry about it.
I'm kind of a transhumanist, and so I'm like, let's do this. Let's bring this out.
I met somebody else that was like that too, where it was a good friend of ours for a little while there. We were hanging out with him, and one day he was like, you know what, I wouldn't mind some robot legs. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, just get rid of these. These are lame. Just give me some robot legs. I was like, why?
Dude, you'd never get tired.
Yeah,
exactly. So great.
Exactly.
Just stand forever and my feet wouldn't hurt. What's the problem with that?
There's so many benefits to being a cyborg. Why not right now?
I remember reading this thing that always made me think of it. And it said, that biology's sole means for existing was to give rise to the machine. And it said, what better way to explore the cosmos? You know, like you're immune from cold and heat. You can have all the food you want.
Oh my God, you're right.
There you go.
Yeah. But
I
yeah,
don't know how I feel about this.
that brings us straight
in the
into
Considering we're already in the Matrix, it's fine.
I know.
brings us straight into things that spook us, which AI definitely does spook
Spooks
me.
you? I'm gonna be AI for Halloween then.
That'd be great. You can just drop in on I put you on my phone as on my speaker. You could just start learning things as I go through my day.
Calling Evan. Pardue.
No, Ex Machina actually scared the crap out of me. So
Ooh, that was a great movie. I really liked that.
Ooh, I gotta go watch that now.
Did you see it?
No.
What? I feel
It's
like
so
we're talking
good.
about trans human stuff here, and
I haven't seen it.
you haven't seen Ex Machina, dude.
No.
It's
No, but
You'll love it.
it's
But it's funny, like me and Laurent got in many arguments over the fact that he's like a Luddite. Like for the guy who loves robots, he hates technology.
oh yeah.
Mm.
And so I found it so funny because I'm like, no man, let's just give in to the technology.
Oh, have you played? Oh my God, what's the video game with the cat?
Oh, Stray.
Yes,
No,
did you
but I
play
will.
Stray? Oh my
No.
God, I think you would really like it, Mike, if you play video games at all.
Is it possible to do iPhone or maybe Xbox 360?
Think
We did it
it's-
on our Xbox. I don't know which one we have.
Mine's like old. Mine's like
Ours is pretty
30
old,
years
too.
old.
You have to have one of those subscription fees. We have a PlayStation Plus, and we played it on there for a little while. I actually played through that game as well. That was an excellent game. Stray is post-apocalyptic world in a jar kind of setting, and you're a cat.
You're the cat.
And
That's
it's just
pretty cool.
everything's
It's really cool.
everything's beautifully animated and textured in the game. I mean, the lighting and the music is perfect. So yeah,
so
Mhm.
I would
probably
definitely
not
check-
an Xbox 360 game. Probably something a little more advanced.
Yeah,
I
360.
don't know.
I forget how
remember
old
what
the
Xbox
360
we had.
is.
360 is from like 2005.
Oh, yeah. You might need
Yeah.
a Xbox One.
Oh, we have Xbox One. That's what we have.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I might need an upgrade.
Or if your computer's strong enough, you might be able to run it on Steam. Steam.
On Steam. Mhm.
Steam. hmm
I love Evan's mispronunciation.
I know
It's
it's always a thing.
I love it. Like
I'm trying over here to
love
like make a point. All of a sudden, it's just like, nope, that's not what I was actually.
it. No,
But no. But no, that's a great game. That's a great movie. They're kind of in the same text. I mean,
seriously, it's like the best part about the podcast. I just
oh
think,
man.
I do. I just think if we could make a blooper reel,
Oh no,
I love it.
me and Matt have
We
talked
will.
about that. There's just so many
Yeah.
times we could fill on one entire episode with it.
I know.
You know,
I
it just
100th episode is just Evan mispronouncing things.
just like a big
That-
stutter fest.
Or if it was just if we just did like maybe a 20-second opener, you know.
yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
He's if I
Matt
knew
probably
him any
has one
better,
already.
He's probably making
Like-
a bank on it. Or he's listening to this now and he's like, oh, he thinks I'm. we'll have to get Matt back on in a couple
Was
episodes.
Matt on?
He was in the past. Yeah, he had,
Oh, that's cool.
we had an introduction so everybody can hear his voice and get to know who he was. But yeah, we'll get
Oh,
him back on in
that's
a little while. He pops up in the Discord every once in a while.
Very cool.
Just being a goof. But yeah. So does anybody have any scary stories related to bonsai? Maybe.
Related to bonsai.
I know.
I mean, like what? So many scary things that have happened to my bonsai.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We were thinking since it's, spooky season and all, we could become a horror podcast for a little bit and talk about scary
like-
things.
Ooh,
5
that would be
minutes.
cool.
5 minutes.
That would be cool.
Yeah. As many horror stories I can think of that have happened to my bonsai trees.
Wow.
Um,
No, but I did just hear this really crazy story about, there's like people who catch pythons down here.
Yeah, I watched
Okay.
a part of a show on that. It's wild. They go around
And it's
with
like
bags.
the skinny white guy,
Yeah,
like with
yeah.
a beard. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So he was on Joe
Who?
Rogan's podcast not too long ago, and he was talking about how he went to this site down there because he's hired by the state to collect these things.
Mhm.
And so they sent him to this site to like go clean it out from pythons. And it was an old NASA site that he went to. And he got there, and I'm thinking this is baloney. So as he's talking, I'm literally like fact checking everything, and it was true.
Mhm.
Like, so it was like this NASA site, and then there was like all this satanic cult stuff that they were finding around the
what?
site.
Crap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like really creepy stuff, and come to find out that, like, I Google, they mentioned that the guy who ran the facility, the NASA guy, was a Satanist, was like an occultist. And I'm like, no, what? That's baloney, and I go and I look it up, and sure as hell, he was a guy who was stripped of his job because he was an infamous occultist. And so now that site down in Florida, down in the Everglades, has become some like holy ground for that.
Wow. It's like
So
a
that
hot
was
spot. Like
yeah, I
people
thought that
frequent it
was-
a lot.
I guess so. I guess that's super creepy.
So weird. I have
Yeah.
to look into that.
Yeah,
That's
super
bizarre.
creepy. Yeah,
Well,
just
that's
like Google like NASA occultist, and you'll see.
I bet
Yeah.
there are some sweet conspiracy theories surrounding that.
There are, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Now they have
Yeah.
so much fuel to like just.
So not bonsai spooky, but that's the most recent like spooky thing I've heard about going on.
to be honest, that's
nearby.
kind of.
No, I've got a story, and I won't share too many details because it's not my story necessarily, but about, I don't know, maybe my first year apprenticing, Michael got a letter from somebody asking about a particular tree and telling a story that she had seen a little boy with a red ball, and when she looked back at this tree, which is one of Michael's bonsai trees, the little boy had gone and the tree was in its place, and she wanted to know if there was any association of a spirit with this tree or anything like that. And Michael didn't have much to say in response to her, but apparently we have a haunted tree in the yard.
Oh,
Where
and
is it? How much is it?
If you can come and visit it. It's
Y'all
one of
should
our
put it-
junipers.
Put it behind
So-
glass, like the doll in the.
Yeah.
Annie
Yeah,
Hill-
that's
Annie
what I'm
Hill
saying.
store.
saying. I could have like a curio bonsai collection.
You
It's like
could.
haunted bonsai trees.
Yeah, and so I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there were. I'm curious whether it was a connection to the tree or a connection to the garden where it was being displayed at the time. But yeah, it's
Wild.
it's pretty
Well,
cool.
if I do come back
Mhm.
as a spirit, I will haunt my bonsai trees,
I
and
think
I'm
that's
not going to come back. And I'll
That's
probably
a great
come back-
idea.
I won't come back as like a little kid though. I'm gonna come back as like probably just like 20-year-old me.
Oh yeah, but like
Or as,
selective
like,
moment of your
cyborg.
life.
Cyborg.
Ooh, yeah,
like-
there you go. Yeah. That's the way to
It's an
go.
alternate reality. Like Mike Lane comes back to haunt his trees. He's just got like robot arms and like a red glowing one eye.
What
like-
would be scarier?
I am
Cyborg
bored.
ghost.
But and then the other thing that's happened to me here is the first time I met Evan and he was staying here
Oh.
at the house.
Yeah. No, that was totally me. This is my story, Carmen. I don't know what you're trying to just
All right, you
snatch
tell
it
it
up.
then.
No. It's
he goes, is there a ghost in the house?
I have this.
I'm like, I sure hope not.
I have this weird sense. Like I've had this for a while where I'll just like walk into a building and like something else is here, but like I don't know if it's like like a person like physically there, or is I just feel something. And I don't know. Sometimes I say that. So now everybody like that's listening to shows be like, man, Evan's a weirdo. But no, it's just it's this thing. And so when I said that, that's whenever the story kind of came about the little boy with the spirit with the tree, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that makes sense. And I just connected the dots, and then we moved on, and I like, I cleansed the house with some rose now, but no,
Some sage.
some
Yeah,
sage.
To
That
be
wasn't-
honest.
But that's not the house ghost. That's a different.
There's a different one. There is a different thing.
Because
that was-
I mean, and I was so maybe scared a little bit by it because the whole winter, this was in spring, the whole winter I had been seeing things out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, it's just the light, it's just a shadow, it's nothing. And then Evans comes over and he's like, "You got a ghost here?" And I'm like, "Oh man."
I found it.
Yeah,
It's
see, I'm like a super big skeptic, but I would love to.
sweet.
Like when I was in New England, I was like I was trying to get Laurent to go to abandoned mental asylums with me.
Oh my God. You're going like all the way. You're not even going on like beginner's ghost tour. You're just,
No.
let's just go to the abandoned mental asylum.
Yeah,
Which one is over there? There's a really
there's
scary
a ton.
one. Isn't
A
there?
ton.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a ton in Connecticut, and we were like right by him, but Laurent wasn't into like breaking and entering.
Oh.
And,
For the record, this recording is going to be casted to a bunch of people. No, I can get that.
I'm not into breaking and entering either. That's why we didn't do it. Okay.
We didn't take that out of context or anything.
didn't do
No, it reminds me a lot of like the BuzzFeed Unsolved guys when you had like the one guy that was like super terrified of like ghosts, and you had the one guy that was like Mike just said, just like, whatever, I don't care about ghosts. Ain't no ghosts around here. And
No,
it's like,
I want to be proved wrong. That's the difference. Is like I go to these places because like I would love to believe in
You could come sleep in the
aliens
guest room over the winter and
like that. Seriously, like I'm a what's the word? I'm a hesitant skeptic. I don't want to be a skeptic.
you're
Yeah.
always looking for the ghosts and the UFOs.
I'm always looking for like if it happened to me, if there was something crazy, like I got levitated in my room or something, I'd be like,
then
"Damn,
maybe.
I would believe it."
Then maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know?
No, I always want to be that person. It's like, it's not real. It's not real. It's just a coincidence. But then random stuff just keeps happening. And it's like, well,
Maybe it's not.
no, it's scary.
Was there not any other like ghost happenings before with like that you noticed before I came over there and mentioned anything?
It
or-
was mostly just, I would keep seeing things out of the corner of my eye in specific spots over and over again.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just the shadow. It's just the way the wind is blowing and the shadows are falling. But it, I don't know. It never just felt like a shadow. It was so weird. It was just always something out of the corner of my eye.
It's
But then, yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, Mike, you probably don't have any ghost stories from your past, anything
Oh.
weird that happened to you. And then I have plenty, but then Carmen, do you have any? Because
Like straight up ghost encounters. I had one where I'm pretty sure the ghost of my great grandmother visited me, but it was in a dream, so it's not necessarily like ghost, but it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something more.
sleep paralysis thing, kind of.
No, it was when I was younger. It's a sad story, but she had come essentially back to me in a dream to like say hi and let me know she was okay and all that. So like kind of give closure to like her death and the whole situation surrounding it. So it just felt very and I don't think I ever dreamt about her again after that. It was like I had nightmares about it before, and then she came back and was like, everything's fine, blah blah blah. And then it was fine after that. So but then as far as after our garden ghost, I sent you a picture once that the dishes, there was like some old oatmeal in a dish in the sink, and it was arranged in a smiley face. It was. You saw the picture. You were like,
I saw it, and I submitted it to the same website that the Red Jesus showed up on, and everybody believed me.
But I wouldn't be afraid of a ghost that left me smiley faces. That'd be pretty
smiley
cool.
face oatmeal.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked both of you guys what that is like, because I've been told that if you're not open to it, then you won't have those experiences at the same time.
Not.
Like, Mike, you're saying you're like, I really want to be proven wrong. I would, pay money to see a ghost pop up like that,
Yeah.
But it's just weird to me. Maybe it's just the way some people see things, perceive things as well. I mean, some people are hypersensitive to things. I don't know. But
even if I saw something, it wouldn't be enough. Like, that's the problem. It's like I'm too scientific. It's like I would be like,
desensitized.
It needs like a demon haunting to like really
yeah.
hit the
Even
ball
if
out
I
of the
saw
park.
something, because I would doubt it. I would be like, I must be hallucinating.
Mhm.
I would something, I would always have to have some explanation. So we'll see though. I want, like, anytime a ghost story happens, I would read it. Anytime there's a UFO story, I read it, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the moment.
Yeah.
So far, the jury's out.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
all
I
right.
think we've got confirmation at this point that UFOs are real. Whether or not they're aliens, I don't know.
Right, but I want them to be aliens.
You want it to be aliens? It's
Yeah.
probably aliens.
I hope
I'm
so.
gonna say.
I hope so.
It's all
Okay,
right.
Evan, what's your ghost stories?
I mean, the
Most recent.
most recent, I think it
Yeah.
would have been that experience at the guest house. I mean, the guest room.
You're gonna scare people from coming here.
No. It's just that.
Did you ever have imaginary friends when you were younger?
No.
Maybe.
Like,
Not
did
particularly.
like your toys arrange themselves by themselves?
No, I'm pretty sure I arranged my own toys for myself. Thank you. No, no. I mean, I remember the sensation of the covers being pulled tight. That one time I
That's
was
really
over there.
Yeah, that's really scary.
That kind of stuff happens every once in a while.
You should sleep. You should be a sounder sleeper.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem.
the trouble
You should sleep
too
through that.
is that I'm a light sleeper, so I'm apparently, like I said earlier, probably a lot more sensitive to things that happen. So I don't know what could have caused that, but it definitely had a sensation that woke me up. And then I looked up and I knew something was there. And I just have that dark kind of, you get that like weird feeling when, because you don't have to have that when you are thinking about a ghost. You can have that as like when you walk in a room and it's dark and you know someone's in there and they're trying to they're either trying to spook you or
I hate that feeling.
or
Yes,
you're just
I know.
surprised
It's
and you're
really
like, and you get like really anxious and you get that
Yep.
like, it's one of your like fight or flight kind of instincts is like, as an animal, you're just like, something's in here and you get like this weird state of mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I felt at that moment. And
It's
then
really funny because that's my favorite room in the whole house to sleep in. I love that room.
that
I'm so
room
comfortable
is-
in there, more comfortable than this room right here.
that room is cold and it's
Well, you had the
on
window open.
I didn't know the room was open the whole time. That was another thing that was really goofy about that whole thing.
That
Now
was a weird week.
maybe I left myself exposed to the ghosts to just walk right through the window, but I don't know.
I don't know. There's been some like this. The whole street is just weird. Lots of deaths and things. So
Oh no, we don't have to
I
talk too much
did
about that.
one time have a nightmare so bad that I woke up screaming next to Lisa, and
no.
yeah, it was a clown coming into the house, and I really thought it was coming into the house. Like this creepy clown.
Do you really you don't like clowns? You're
No,
not a
I don't
clown
even have
person?
an issue with clowns. Seriously,
Oh.
it's weird. It was just the weirdest thing. It was like it was so real. And that's why I'm telling you guys. I wouldn't bore you with my dreams, but I remember like looking outside her house and like there was this guy standing across the street in a clown outfit, really creepy. And so I shut the door. I like yelled at him a bunch to like get away, and he wouldn't move. And so I go to shut the door, and I realized I didn't lock the door. And so I turn around to go lock the door, and then the door opens. And the guy walks in. And I woke up screaming and woke Lisa up and everything. It was crazy. So
Did you have one of those weird moments where you're trying to punch somebody in a dream and it feels like nothing, like air?
it was so real. I'm still traumatized about it. Like I still like, man, that really happened, didn't it? Yeah.
No.
It
well,
did. Parallel universe.
Unfortunately, guys, I'm gonna have to bail out. We're about to eat some dinner.
Well, you don't have time to do a critique on this Jade really quick?
Yeah, real quick. Let's do it.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, let's get into a critique. We have a Discord where we have our tree critiques submitted, and it's easier for us to find them there because the Discord thread gets so long. But we're looking at a Portucary Afra. It's somewhat semi-cascade. I wouldn't consider this a full cascade, but it's in the Discord chat. For the listeners here, it's going to be over on our Instagram page, Little Things for Bonsai People, and it's going to be marked with this episode number. So, by the way, it's JAS Pot submitted this and said, be harsh. So, go.
All right.
Tear this thing apart.
I would say it needs a shallower pot first. Like the easy thing is a shallower pot. So like a full cascade pot, but it's a semi cascade, and so that's kind of an easy one.
Oh, that wasn't mean.
No, honestly,
it's pretty straightforward.
It's not a bad tree. It's just it's really not. I don't like there's that branch that's on the inside of the curve, that big fat branch that I don't like.
Yeah.
I would get rid of that. And debating the right branch, but I think you need it for now.
Need that.
Yeah.
For balance for now, at least. Yeah. Otherwise you kind of lose the, I don't know, it just becomes less dynamic.
It does. You don't have anything to the other side, but it'd be nicer if that foliage came from something maybe higher in the tree that filled that same spot, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's my impression is that it's young, or that it's still, in development, because I do like that little bit of foliage there, but I think you're right. If it came from somewhere further up the tree is kind of like a drop branch or branch kind of going back that way, it might be more effective. And then that big thick branch in the back, I don't think you need it.
I don't think you need it at all.
I think more branches, more twigginess as it gets older. And then, I would go for a shallower pot, since it's not really a full cascade, unless the intent is to go full cascade. But in that case, I still probably would go with a shallower pot and
just build it out slowly, right?
Yeah. Or put it on a stand where it can, let the pot still be shallower, and then let it fall in front of a stand or the bench or whatever. I like the little stand it's on. I think that's real cute.
Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty nice tree. I actually like the pot too. It's it looks like it's made of some decent clay. That's cool. Yeah, cool little feet on the pot too.
Little feet.
I agree with everything you guys said, especially on that thicker branch. It's a shame that it wasn't something finer that could just be another back dropping branch that's more of, because you got the balancing branch there. It's a tad too high, in my opinion. But then at the same time, there's the first branch comes down. It's pretty lovely how it has that drop, and you can see the levels of it that they can start building. I think that should be, especially if you're going for semi-cascade, it should be a little sharper. But then that branch right above it that runs just parallel with it is a little awkward, in my opinion.
I agree with that. But that's the one that we were saying should probably stay temporarily, I think.
Yeah, but
I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah.
Until that bottom branch fills out more.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a portulacaria. If he's in a warm range, these things grow like a weed, so it's easy to rebuild this tree.
I think he's in New England area, so
nice.
Inside under lights, you could probably make it grow pretty quick.
What's his name?
This is JAS Potts submitted this one. That's his his name.
Maybe I met that.
You probably met him in person when you were traveling. Yeah. You should contact Mike and let him know that he knows you. JAS Potts. But Mike, if you need to
I got to bounce.
If you got to bounce out, that's understandable.
I want to know what's for dinner.
We're having lasagna.
I was just thinking of lasagna today.
Yeah. I love me some lagnazaga. Yeah, it's great, man. But you enjoy that a sweet Italian dish, and we'll catch up with you on the flip side.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks. It was nice catching up with you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'll catch you next time. All right.
All right, Mike.
All right, see you guys.
But Carmen, if you want to stick around for a moment, we can.
Yes.
Wait. Don't make it awkward.
Waiting for Mike to leave. There we go.
I don't want to make it weird where we're just still talking and he's like, oh, wait, I have something. But so anyway, I want to see if you want to go ahead and do the word of the week really quick. No. And then,
yes,
thank you guys for listening to Little Things for Bonsai People.
Yeah, bye.
No, we'll hit the last segment of our show that we sometimes forget to do, or sometimes we'll have a guest on here and it just gets all mixed up. But it would be cool if Mike gave us like a little reel in, like some music to go up to it. Did I say Matt or Mike?
You said Mike, but I think you meant Matt.
I did mean Matt.
Matt, we need some like
I'm so sorry,
word
Matt.
of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can say that again.
Word of the week.
Take that audio clip and just make it like echoey and crazy, like with some
Word of the week.
Yeah, do something like that. And I'm sorry I said Mike because, dude, Matt, Mike, Michael, the words that we use like on a consistent basis on the show. But anyway, yeah. So our bonsai word of the week is going to be, I think it's Sishin.
Say that again.
Sishin. So it's
Sishin. Sishin.
Seishin. So it's a Japanese word for spirit. I'm just going to use that one.
Oh,
because we were talking a little bit about Japanese spirit earlier, and their the belief of the spirit world, and basically what, like, a lot of the things like the lanterns like guide the spirits, the torii gates are gateways into sacred areas. So I thought it would be cool just kind of touch on that a little bit. And one of the things that makes me think about like the spirit world and spirits for Japanese culture is like, I think a beautiful representation of that is like the Spirited Away film. Kind of shows you a lot of the lore. If you go back and look at that, if anyone's seen that movie and was confused, like legitimately confused, like what is going on? If you look at it, it's actually got a lot of connections to traditional Japanese lore as far as how the spirit world functions and how human beings are supposed to be able to transcend into it in older stories. So that's actually that movie's a good introduction to it. But yeah, you were reading something earlier, Carmen, that was a good add-in to it.
Oh yeah, I was, because we were talking about spirits and Halloween and spooky things that have happened with bonsai. I had looked up something about Japanese people and the belief in ghosts, and it says that Japanese culture holds a deep reverence for the spirit world and believes in the existence of ghosts. They're a fundamental belief that humans. Oh wait, no, not that part. Yeah, they're both feared and revered and part of a deep magic, a foundational belief that humans have a god inside of them, and that there's ghostly etiquette, which involves avoiding taboo actions and places that may attract spirits or invite supernatural occurrences. And I remember I was telling Evan too before we started recording, I'd seen a documentary on a tsunami that happened a number of years ago, and how when a monk had a interaction with a spirit woman who he ended up having to, spend time with to help her get to the other side or whatever. And so I think that there's an interesting connection possibly here with bonsai. And if anybody has bonsai ghost stories, I would love to hear them.
Yeah, if there's anybody in our Bonsai Best Buds that want to drop in there and give us some little stories, we can just, short little, maybe paragraph stories is totally fine. And we'll go in and we'll repeat them. Just make sure that you guys drop it in and tag me and or Carmen, just so I can see it, because a lot of things get said in the chat, so we can catch up on it. But yeah, there's a lot of reverence to spirits in Japanese culture. And was one of the things that I was going to say earlier is that like, it's funny because Mike even used the best word for it. He's like, I look at some bonsai that are done so well that they lack the soul. And that's something that I feel like whenever I encounter a truly old tree, this is something I've told a few people whenever I'm near, like, for instance, like live oak, the Corgus americana that grows here. And when they're so big and they're so old, the branches literally feel like trunks, like almost like if an elephant trunk, as if it was going to move suddenly and just start slowly wrapping around. I can almost feel like a sense of breath in those trees. And that's kind of how I would imagine it could be seen with bonsai. Sometimes I could sense a tree is old like that. It's a, I'm not trying to go back to like, Evan's a seer, he's a weirdo. But no, but like it is something. But no, I definitely have a connection with the trees like that, because I want, you want to believe that the tree can have some kind of feeling. And that is something that I know there are tree spirits. That's a huge thing in Japanese lore and culture, is that some trees, like that's also used in My Neighbor Totoro. There's a spirit tree as well in that movie. And usually the trees that have the things wrapped around their trunks, I forget what they're called, but they're adorned with like this spirit band.
Yeah.
To kind of, commemorate that spirit, to give honor to that spirit.
I'm a big believer in that trees are people too. Essentially, each tree, especially some of the really old ones, have this feeling of they do have their own personality, their own spirit, their own, something.
I want to put that on one of our future shirts.
Trees are people too.
Trees are people too. I think that'd be funny. And give like a bonsai tree like a suitcase, or like briefcase to like go to work or something. He's got responsibilities and stuff. No, but no, it's trees. Trees are impactful. We do this for a reason. We do bonsai for a reason. So they got to have something going on that intrigues us. So maybe there is a spirit there that has a magnetism or something. It's an interesting concept. I know, I don't know what the percentage of listeners would be spiritual people, and then the other are just, this is just
this episode off a long time ago.
Yeah, they were probably like, oh crap,
we're not talking about this.
It's the water level on Mario. I'm just so tired of this. So let's skip through this part. But no, there is some depth to it, because it kind of does go back to the art side. It's like, if you find the spirit in it, then I guess that goes from just the regular dedicated craft to creation to finding something that feels more alive, literally. So any input on the word of the day, spirit, Sishin?
I like it.
Oh yeah. I think that's been your input on a good number of them. You're just like, that's a nice word.
They're all great. But no, I agree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons I get a little bit uncomfortable when people treat trees as disposable or collect without ethics, or, when there's just, they use trees as a commodity instead of having that proper respect for them, because there is something, I think, more to them and to this art, and, they need to be respected and cared for as the individuals that they are, not just treated as something to do something to.
Yeah, that's definitely agreed. Like, I really like the whole thing of like removing yourself. I know that was going kind of against what we said earlier with the thing. It's like, with the approach is like, put yourself in the art. I personally like the remove yourself from it.
I think you have to remove yourself from it to get it, to get the technique, to get the craft of it. And then once you get to that point, because when you're standing in the way of yourself, you can just get in your own way so much. So I think at some point you do have to try and remove yourself from it. That's really hard to do. Yeah,
because I know that this is the hopes for most bonsai artists and practitioners out there, is that if I've worked on this tree for long enough, that maybe one day when I'm gone, the next person can care for it, and that in a way is putting spirit into it, I think.
For sure,
it's a deep way of thinking about it. But yeah. So now that we've talked about everything all at once, about art and spooky stories, and also artificial intelligence, and how Mike would not mind becoming a cyborg. We're gonna
tree spirits and lasagna.
Tree spirits, and now he's off to eat his lasagna. But let's just go ahead and wrap it up. Let's just say that if you guys would like to purchase a Little Things for Bonsai People, the podcast, the t-shirt, you can go over to UnderhillBonsaiStore.com. We have not as many as I would like to have on hand left, but we've gone through a good bit of them.
That's good then, though, because that means we sold them.
That just means I have to be creative and come up with a new design.
Trees are people too.
Trees are people too, coming soon to a t-shirt near you. Then we have I think we have a handful of the larges and extra larges. That's a very popular size. We have a lot of smalls. So if we have any small people or children that need podcast shirts, please think of us. But yeah, you can go catch the shirts over at UnderhillBonsaiStore.com. They're $30 a piece. We've got the white and black, do 2 different designs, pocket tees, very comfortable. They're printed on comfort colors. They're cottons, they're spun cotton, high quality, feel awesome, and they fade with like a almost like a stone wash patina look to them. They look really cool after you wear them.
I washed it a few times and it's holding up really well.
Yeah, it's not one of those shirts where you wash it one time and it just like goes sideways on you. Literally, like one corners of it feels like it's longer than the other, and then like your neckline's really tight suddenly. No, they're really nice shirts. So since Mike already bounced out, we can go over to kitsunebonsai.com, go over look at Mike's stuff. He's got seasonal offerings. He was talking about a class that he's got coming up in the Discord recently. I can't remember what that was exactly, but yeah, you can go over there, check it out. He's got all this information listed there.
Does he have any more of Lawrence books for sale over there?
No, and that's another good thing to drop in there. He's sold out.
Oh, I was going to get one because I was mad I didn't have one for him to sign when he was here.
Yep.
Darn it.
So he was telling me that when he was over in Europe, he didn't sell a whole lot of books and he was doing okay with them. And as soon as he set foot on US soil, brought his books with him, he sold them all.
Wow.
So if anybody is interested in getting Cosmic Bonsai Volume 1 and 2, they are all currently out of print. But because he sold them all out, he can print them again. So there is pre-orders. I think Mike is going to be the first person to get that because he's going to be the distributor of Cosmic Bonsai issues 1 and 2. So we should be seeing that in the future. So yeah, you guys can head over to Kitsune Bonsai and anticipate the pre-order on that. And then as for Underhill Bonsai, you can go over to underhillbonsai.com for me to see my articles that I've written. You can see some of the stuff we have available on our online store if you go to the store link, of course. And then I have Instagram that you can go check out. And my Instagram is both the Underhill account and, if some people couldn't tell, also linked up to Little Things for Underhill People on Underhill People. Jeez, that was awesome. My brain is trying to go way ahead of itself.
You're talking too fast. Little Things for Underhill People.
Little Things for Bonsai People on Instagram. If you go over there, you'll actually see I took a picture with Freddie and Jason recently. They were really nice guys.
Very spooky.
Yeah, they very spooky. They took a moment from trying to kill themselves in dreams and then stepping into the real world at Crystal Lake, but instead decided to have a drink with me. It was a pretty good time. But yeah, and then for you, Carmen, where can people go check out your stuff for a moment?
You can find me on Instagram at Becoming Bonsai. I'm also on Facebook. And you can check out the Purple Pot Society, which is the National Women's Bonsai Group. You don't have to be a woman to join. We take all genders. But our mission is to support, educate, and inspire women to produce bonsai. So yes, I think that's all for me. That was very poorly thought through.
No. I always do this part off the cusp because
you think I'd remember how to say it.
just do it. Just say it. You know what you're going to say, but yeah. So what's the likelihood we can get Sam on?
Oh, super likely.
Okay, maybe we'll have her on the next one.
Oh my God, speaking of dreams, I had the weirdest dream that I bought her house from her, but it wasn't her house, it was a mansion. Anyway, it's very confusing. I'll tell you about it sometime.
That's very interesting. Maybe we can bring that up on the next episode of Little Things for Bonsai People.
Underhill people.
Underhill people. Not the hobbits, not the hobbit people, but little people. Little Things for Bonsai People. This was a very interesting episode.
Little people for bonsai things.
Yeah. So you guys have a great week wherever you're listening at. It could be fall, it could be spring, because we have listeners on the other side of the planet. So, but you guys have a great Halloween season. Mine's going to be mildly cool. I'm sure yours is going to be kind of colder than mine.
Yes, probably quite wet. We're putting a sealant layer on my son's costume so that it doesn't melt in the rain.
Oh, great. So catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.